welcome too.
Oh, thank you, Pooh. Hey everybody, it's Lindsay, and you're back for another episode of Journey for Infertility. I hope everybody had a good week. I'm actually recording this in real time, so this will come out today. Mother's Day just went by, and I just want to kind of update you on me personally. Mother's Day went by, and it wasn't a rough day. I got up and, said a prayer for everybody who's going through a lot on this Mother's Day, for anybody who's lost their mother, who's lost any kids, or people who are yearning for kids. I did say a prayer for them Sunday morning as soon as I got up, and just pray for grace and mercy for people for the whole day to get through it, as best way they could. Because like I said, you take it a day at a time. And I didn't really do anything. We took our daughter to go see her mother's grave and, just ventured out during the day. And that was pretty much it. I got some flowers, got her pictures that I'm going to put up in my office soon. But other than that, it was a good day. It wasn't a tear-filled day or anything like that for me, but overall it was a good day. So I wanted to get into this episode this week. I got a dial-in from one of my good friends, and it was more of a question to me. She wanted me to speak about grieving during a relationship. And it took me a minute to actually come to speak about this because, I had so many thoughts about how I wanted to speak about me grieving during my relationships, but those relationships that I think about the most are, my romantic relationships and my friendships. So I do want to speak on both of those. So, in the midst of losing, my son Isaiah, with his dad, our relationship did a complete 180 after, it occurred. We supported each other the best way we could, but because this is something that we had not endured or experienced, we weren't ready to heal and deal with life after Isaiah. And that was what really ultimately broke us, because we got to a point that we could not deal with each other. I could not talk to him about how I was feeling. I just really felt like I was in my own bubble. And granted, I think he was too, but because we were both so stubborn, we didn't talk about our feelings so in depth that we thought that we could fix each other. Because like I said, even when I did lose him, I went to these mental health appointments and barely went, so I did not get any insight or any advice on how I should move forward with grieving. And that took a really tumultuous turn for our relationship because things weren't okay. We had got to the point that, we were having some serious issues to the point where we couldn't even be around each other. And, we broke up for a little while and then we came back together again, but we just could not deal and heal from our past trauma. So we never worked out. To this day, I don't have a problem with him. He's always going to be Isaiah's dad, and I can't be mad at him for, the things that went on because we were young. We were in love, but we just could not be in love and deal and heal from losing our son. So that ultimately just broke us apart. Now with my husband, things were a little different. I guess with the process of going through what we went through, because we had a prior loss, with everything. So we had a loss, and at that same time, he had a loss, of his his child's mother at that time. So that was the first thing that we experienced together like that. But at that time, we were kind of in different places because he's grieving the loss of her and he's grieving the loss of our child. And then I'm grieving the loss of my child. And in the same breath, again, I felt like I'm going through this by myself at that time because it wasn't about us. It wasn't about our child. It was about everything else that was going on around us. So it was hard to kind of get through that. But we managed to make it through because, he was dedicated to just making sure that I was okay because he knew that with my previous losses that it hurt. So again, not too long after that is that when we had our 2 losses with my ectopic pregnancies. And again, we dealt with it, and it was something that we addressed. It was something that we talked about. Granted, it was hard for me to do so in the beginning, but we did it. And, he encouraged me a lot to the point that we're going to have a baby one day, and the time is going to be whenever he says so, not when we say so. And that was the encouragement that I needed. But even in that same breath, he said, I understand that we had these losses, but in the meantime, with what's going on, love on 7 and love on her and make sure that this is, not even saying this is what you want, but just more so love on her. And when you start loving on her, that's when it will come. And so, it took some time for me to heal and, and deal and just give her my full attention. And I don't think that I would be here if he wouldn't have done that for me, just to help me think like, this is what you want. If this is what you want, let's take this baby step and let's start with here. And it worked for me. It didn't come immediately, but it took that time for us to build our relationship, and it took us that time to just be present in what's going on. And of course, the outcome right now, like I have 2 beautiful little babies, and they came at a time where I least expected it, where I gave up. And it just took my relationship with him to push me, to comfort me. And even, at one point we were just saying, well, if it happens, it happens. And if it don't, it don't. I still love you. I still care about you. And that doesn't define you in my life of if we have kids or not. And that made it okay. And then even grieving still, along with that, a lot of my relationships suffered from other people too. It was at a point that as soon as I, started going through this grieving process, a lot of my friends were pregnant. And I hate to even use this word, but a lot of times, like, being around them was a trigger. And we all had this, we had this bond at that time, like, oh my God, we have all these babies. They're all going to grow up together. And then when I lost my son, it was literally like, it seemed like everybody fell off the face of the earth with me. I don't know if it was just me feeling the way that I felt, or if they backed up off of me because of guilt, or I don't even know what the case could be. But at that time, I felt like I got abandoned by, the people that I cared about the most, who I called my friends, that, that were around me who were pregnant. And, there was just certain things that I couldn't explain, I couldn't let go of. And I don't know how they felt, because I've never really had that conversation with any of them like that. But I do know that everybody's stuff around me was a trigger, and I couldn't be around them also. So I think majority of it maybe have been me, but also them too, because I think they didn't want to tiptoe around, what was going on. Because not even too long after that, one of my friends was pregnant, and I went to her baby shower. I know I was good, I was fine, and it was just like, in the moment, everything just changed. And it was the fact that, she's carrying a baby. I just lost my baby, and it wasn't too long, after that when this, occurred. It's probably within like a couple of months. And it was just, I couldn't deal with it. Like, I just remember leaving the room, going off and crying, and, trying my best to come back and be supportive because, it's my friend. It was my boyfriend's friend. So, of course, I'm trying to be supportive because this was something that was new. And it wasn't a good day that day. And I had to actually leave her baby shower. And I felt so bad and so guilty for doing it. But I couldn't keep my composure. Like, it was every 2 to 3 minutes, like, tears are rolling down my face, and I'm trying my best to be happy, but I couldn't be happy in that moment. And, a little bit after that, like, I tried my best to be supportive of other people and try to figure out a way to navigate these relationships that I had with people, because I didn't want to come around and allow things to trigger me. So I think, in a sense, I did kind of become a recluse behind it, because I didn't want to have a woe is me party or anything like that, because that was always what I felt I did to people. And it was just always, everybody's always tap dancing around the subject, or they didn't want to talk about it. And that led to a lot of issues. And it might have been a lot of unresolved issues with me, with my relationships with people, because, some of my friends, again, like right now, there's a lot of them who were around me when we were pregnant, and I'm no longer friends with them, or we're associates, but we're not the friends that we used to be. But as the years have gone on, I can't take responsibility for how anybody else felt in our relationship. I can only take responsibility for mine. So I leave it at that. Dealing with that and grieving and just trying to navigate with other people was the ultimate goal. And, I don't regret anything in regards to my relationships. Because if I didn't go through what I went through, I wouldn't be here now. So, the process of grieving, in the relationships are always going to be different. And like I say, any time that you're grieving in any process, it doesn't matter who it's with, who it's for, what it's for. You have to give yourself grace in the moment to be able to handle everything. And you have to make sure that you take care of yourself. I had to learn that later on down the line. Like, what I'm working through right now, is, dealing with everything and just taking it as it comes, because grief has no timetable. And I push that so much because, again, people always feel like there should be a timetable on how long you should grieve. And there is no timetable. Like, I lost my son in 2009. It's 2020. I'm still grieving. I'm not crying every day like I used to, but it's still a process, and it's something that you have to work through, because there might be some unresolved issues that are going on that could be triggering your grief. And, I push anybody to figure out a way to grieve. If it's with your partner, I suggest going to therapy. And therapy literally is therapeutic. Like, you have somebody who is trying to navigate you through your grieving process. And I believe that if I would have done this sooner, I would have healed possibly a lot faster than what I am now, because it's taken years because of the fact that, therapy is frowned upon. And of course, I believed it. And so I didn't want to feel like I was weak or anything of that sort. But this therapy has been so therapeutic and helpful that it did what it was supposed to do for me. But that is everything in regards to me grieving through relationships. It wasn't easy, but it can be done. So I leave you here with this episode, and I hope to see you guys next week. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Bye.